Welcome back to the Comp Closet podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today we are joined by a coach, business owner, and an FMG athlete. Her debut show was nothing short of inspiring. She looked absolutely incredible, placing in both wellness and bikini athletic, and doing it all after a string of cancelled shows, heartbreaks, and setbacks. Teiyana Patterson, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. So excited.
I am so excited to hear more about your journey as well, because you obviously shared a bit online, but I feel like there's so much more to it that I won't know and our listeners won't know as well. So let's start with the journey that led to your FMG debut. You had 4 cancelled shows before stepping on stage. What kept you going through all of that disappointment?
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty crazy that I only competed last year after literally doing that many preps back to back since about 2019. I think I decided to get into the FMG sort of industry, bodybuilding industry. To think about what kept me coming back is honestly just that promise I kept to myself. I am someone who, if I have my mind set to something, there is nothing I will not do to actually achieve it. Like, it's just something that just embeds in my mind and I just cannot satiate it until I've done it, if that makes sense. So I think that's what kept me coming back time and time again, just wanting to actually achieve it and like let that idea go to rest, if that really makes sense.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So, just for someone who potentially doesn't follow you or doesn't know who you are yet, can you share a little bit around like how you kind of got into the fitness industry and what led you into competing?
Yeah, so I have always been into health and fitness. There's nothing like too crazy or like a cool story of why I got into it, but I've always been in the fitness industry. I left school early to become or to study PT and got my certs to then eventuate into coaching. So I've always been immersed in that industry, and my family's pretty fit and healthy as well, and we do like live in that kind of world. So it was already kind of a lifestyle for me. I didn't know that I wanted to do bodybuilding or competing. It's not really a thing where I live. Especially not in the federation that I eventually entered into. But I had been approached in the gym a few times by some members that just said, like, look, I think you've got a really good starting position to do well in bodybuilding. Have you ever thought about doing it? And that's kind of where it sparked the idea of where I should go to next. Because in your fitness, I guess, like journey, you hit this point where you're like, okay, cool, what's next? What do I want to do next? I knew didn't want to play sport in my adult life. I knew I wanted to possibly go into something a bit more singular and personal to myself. And that next step was bodybuilding. And when I moved to Australia, I had actually been approached by Jake Campus as well, who's really well known in this industry, especially in the FMG industry. And he said, like, look, I think you would do really well in XYZ, like, why don't you go for it? And that just kind of what sparked that idea of, okay, I've hit that point of, I am a coach. I've been in the industry for a while. I've done the strength training. I've done the cardio stuff. I've done Pilates. I've done all those things. What's next for me? And that's kind of where that led into.
Yes, I love that. So you had all of the cancelled shows and then you finally prepped for a show that went ahead. And I remember you mentioning in one of your posts, like you went into the show with zero expectations and you just wanted to make your younger self proud. Can you tell me a little bit around what that mindset came from and kind of what it meant to you?
Yeah, so I'd obviously gone in to try compete over the last few years, and it'd been kind of the rug pulled out underneath me. So it wasn't something that I was necessarily in control of stopping. So I knew that I constantly kept thinking about doing it. Like, I just needed to do it. I needed to bite the bullet and I needed to do it because it wasn't something that I was going to stop thinking about until I had just done it. So that's the kind of mindset I was in for that. And it meant so much to me for my younger self to actually achieve that for her. So I think going into the mindset of doing this prep that I eventually competed in was that I just like wanted to give myself peace of mind, like to know that I actually could do it and it was in my control to do, as much as, all these things were out of my control and there was nothing I could do about that. There were things that were in my control. There were plenty of shows I could do. I just had to reach out and actually like do it, really.
Yeah, 100%. And so tell me about how your first show went when you eventually made it on stage.
Yeah, so I competed in the Sydney show last year. I think that was in April, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was in
Yeah.
April. And I placed third in wellness and I placed fifth in bikini athletics. So beyond my expectations of what I thought I was going to place in that show, especially because I prepped in New Zealand. I live in New Zealand and I had to travel over to Australia to compete against the Australian FMG competitors. And we all know that you guys, well, the Australian competitors, athletes are pretty top tier. So I was really unsure about how I'd go in that show. But yeah, I walked away with amazing results for my debut and I could not have been happier to have done it finally.
Yes, so incredible. And for anyone who hasn't watched an FMG show before in Australia, if you're from a different federation or even from a different country, the lineups in Australia are absolutely stacked, like
Yeah,
insane. And especially the athletic lineup, like I don't think there was height categories, was there? So massive,
it was huge.
massive lineup and like absolutely stacked. So that is, an incredible result from your first show, those placings. How was it that day emotionally for you?
Yeah, so that day or that prep was much different to any other prep I'd ever gone into. I think I really went into almost like an out of body experience that whole time. I wasn't really I took, because I had been doing back to back shows where the show never eventuated and I had to keep prepping and coming out of prep and going back into prep again. I didn't know where I fit in the industry as well, whether I was wellness or bikini athletic. I think I just surrendered to the outcome. I just surrendered to the prep. I surrendered to what was going to happen on the day, which made it a really good experience for me. Like I didn't know how I was going to feel on the day. And I know some people, especially being there in that moment, I was watching people stressed out and I could see that the pressure was getting to a lot of these athletes. And I just felt like that wasn't the case for me. I honestly went in so zen. I just enjoyed every moment. And I think the sense of relief, I felt like I just felt so much relief that I'd even like made it to that day. And I think every day leading up until then, I was just like, okay, let me actually get to the show day, because the last prep I'd done before that, we were 4 weeks out and the show had stopped. So I was like, please, like fingers crossed, just let the show go ahead. And then when I actually got there, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm here. Like there's nothing I can do but enjoy this experience and just really immerse myself into it. And I think that's what made it a really good experience. I think that's what made my posing really good as well. Like I didn't feel shaky. I didn't feel nervous. Like I just, yeah, like became a whole new person on that day. Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been the most incredible feeling to finally actually make it on a stage after all of that work. And it must have been such a high. But then you opened up online about your post show health scare. So you're hospitalized for 13 days shortly after the show. Can you walk us through what happened?
Yeah. So my prep was nothing short of hard, but I genuinely just put it down to being like, oh, it's just prep. It's hard sort of thing. But yeah, post show, I got off stage. I had my normal meals out with my family and friends. The next day, I was still in Sydney. Normally I made my own breakfast that next morning, and I just made sure, because I was really going to it like, I know from my friends who are athletes. I've seen YouTube videos. I've seen you talk about it. I've seen so many pros talk about how like hard reversing is and that post-show experience. So I knew for me, like prep's not done when show's done. Like I need to nail this next phase. So I made sure that I ate my breakfast and I was just limiting myself to a meal out a day, which we did. We explored around Sydney. I had a meal out that night. And then the next day after we flew back to New Zealand, I then that morning after on that Monday, so sorry, gone out on that Sunday evening, hung out with my friends and family, enjoyed that post show kind of bliss, and then got back home and knew as soon as I got back home, I was like, okay, we're on it. We're back. We're in reverse. We are going through the prep stage of that reverse. And I just felt really sick. Like as soon as I'd even had that meal out after show, I knew, yeah, I'd probably experience some bloating, but I was like, this is not normal. I am bloating like crazy. And I would basically vomit after every meal I had, non-voluntary. Like it was just crazy. And I was thinking, okay, I'm seeing all these girls on social media, like all people that just compete in that same show as me, enjoying like, whatever they wanted to eat. And I was doing so well with my reverse. I'm like, this just can't be right. Like I can't be eating more foods that I was eating on prep and still be feeling so ill. So that next Monday, that afternoon, I just felt so sick. And I was like to my partner, I think something's wrong. I'm going to go to the hospital, because as soon as I had breakfast, I literally vomited and then I had a nap. I was like, I just need to go to sleep. And then I booked an appointment with the doctor that afternoon. went to the doctor, drove there myself, and just explained what had happened and where I just came from. And she was like, oh, let's run some tests. And I ended up vomiting in the doctor's office. And she was like, okay, let's do your bloods here. You need to go to A&E. And I just felt so drowsy. I was almost about to pass out. I got her to call my dad. My dad had to come pick me up because I couldn't drive myself from the doctors to A&E. Ended up being in the waiting room for about 4 or 5 hours with extreme pains in my stomach. Like I literally couldn't even sit up. And then my doctor, my lovely, amazing doctor, she called ahead and said, like, we've just read your bloods. You have pancreatitis and possible gallstones. So rush her through. Like, so they were trying to get me out of the waiting room A&E to actually go in because I wasn't actually allowed any painkillers or anything when I was sitting in that waiting room. So that was probably the worst pain I'd ever been in. I was hot sweats. I was crying on my poor father was next to me, and I was just crunched over, like so ill, thinking it was just prep or thinking I just had maybe had some digestional issues post-show, which some people experience. And then still just kept trying to push through that pain. Ended up going into the emergency room. They ran some more tests, luckily gave me some pain relief, and then got admitted that night with pancreatitis. So the initial diagnosis was that I had pancreatitis, which is really painful, and then they tried to do an ultrasound, but because my stomach was so inflated, it was so inflated, like it literally looked like if you popped it, like you'd pop it with a pin and it would just burst. So they thought maybe appendix, but it wasn't that. They did an ultrasound, but they couldn't see anything because it was so bloated and there was so much water retention and everything in my stomach, which was really hard for me to see as an athlete who just came off the leanest I've ever looked in my life, to within a matter of like a couple days being the most bloated and inflamed just everywhere. I still had my dark comp tan on too. The poor nurses and things I looked awful. And then they ended up having to book me in for an MRI because they needed to see what was happening because they couldn't see it through the ultrasound. So I had to wait a couple of days. Within that couple of days, I was obviously on a lot of medication because I was in so much pain. So I was pretty dazed pretty much the whole time, and I was just getting more inflamed. And because I just come off prep and I haven't been able to eat as well because half the time they were thinking about surgery, which meant I had to go nil by mouth for multiple days throughout that time. But I think by the third day, I got in the MRI, which came back that I was absolutely riddled with gallstones as well. So I had gallstones and pancreatitis at the same time. And they said, like, look, we understand you're in a lot of pain sort of thing, but we're going to have to schedule you in for a surgery. During those amount of days, I was in there for a total of 13 days. In that time, I had gotten injections in my stomach to make sure that I didn't have blood clots. I was basically bedridden. So from doing 18,000 steps to doing literally not even 100 steps, being pumped with medication, finding I had gallstones, kind of a waiting game to see when I could get in for that next surgery. And they were going on strike during that time too. So it was a bit of like tug and pull because the poor nurses and the poor doctors were overstaffed and they were going through a strike. So they were struggling to get me in for a surgery as well. So that's what kind of delayed that experience and why I wasn't out probably sooner than what I should have been. They kept doing bloods each day, and because my bloods were off, I don't know the terms for, or like what was off, what wasn't, but my bloods weren't looking good. So they decided to book me in for my first surgery, which was to get I think it was like a 9mm gallstone stuck in a duct of mine that was only like 5mm, which they had to go through a first surgery to get that out. And if that was successful, then a few days later, they could then get my gallbladder out and take that out, that entire organ, so that this wouldn't happen again, sort of thing. So went and booked in for that surgery, got that surgery, that was fine. And instantly after that surgery, I felt so much pain relief. Like they said that one gallstone that was stuck in this duct, which was what was causing me the most pain. So that came out. And then that day I really tried to walk around. Like I was trying so hard during that time to just walk around, feel like myself again. Because if you're someone who is active your whole life and then you're told you essentially can't be, it is such a mind struggle to get yourself around that mindset of like, okay, I do need to slow down to speed up later, and this is for recovery. especially on top of that being just post show and trying to nail this reverse and seeing your body like extremely blown up from all this medication and being sedentary was really, really, really tough for me. And then, yeah, so we ended up getting that next surgery, which was the gallbladder removal. I didn't really understand what was going on during that time. I didn't really understand what calls were being made or why we had to do the things we did, or if I could have kept my gallbladder. I just said, yeah, like, let's do it so I can get out of here, sort of thing. Removed the gallbladder, which was a success, but I now had four new scars almost. Like I had a really long scar up here. I had one over my belly button and I had two on my side. So again, going from the leanest I'd ever been to now really blown up and out of control on lots of medication. I think I had got my bloods done 15 times during that time. I had an IV, I had 2 surgeries, and I'd been cut open like in 4 different places in my stomach, which they had actually sewn up my belly button tighter than what it should have been, because I was trying to explain to them, like, I'm a bodybuilder. I've just come off a bodybuilding prep. I don't normally look like this. My body isn't like this normally. But I don't think they quite understood that, and they've actually like they sewed up my belly button so tight that I was like, oh my gosh, my belly button doesn't usually look like how it looks on prep normally when I obviously gain a lot more body fat. Like, is this going to stretch? And it did really, I did struggle like the weeks after, because as my body was gaining weight, my belly button was feeling really, really tight, and it felt like it was almost ripping. Then, yeah, so that was pretty much that kind of journey. I was trying to work a full-time job during that time as well, but I was so lucky that I have such good support systems, and my dad came every single day. He just sat with me the whole day, every day during that 13 days. And then getting out of it, yeah, going back home and having to go actually move back into my parents for like 2 weeks just for recovery, because they couldn't even get on and off my bed without them helping me, was really hard as well. So
Oh
not
my
quite
God.
the post-show experience I was hoping for, but it wouldn't be my prep or my journey without these adversities, I feel. It's almost like
Wow, that is an absolutely
well,
crazy, crazy story. Like it must have been so, so difficult physically, but also mentally. Like,
yeah.
I think there's so much focus on peak week and show day, but hardly anyone talks about the weeks after and how hard that is, mentally and physically. But then you obviously went through all of that as well. So, like, what did you learn about your body and your mindset in that recovery phase, especially with surgery thrown in the mix as well?
Yeah, I think I'm a lot more headstrong than I think. I think my pain tolerance is really high too. And I think that I tend to, and I think it's a New Zealander way too. Like, I think we just like push through things that maybe we shouldn't push through. Like, we just really say, like, oh, it is what it is. Like, I'm just going to make do with what I've got, sort of thing. But knowing that, no, if my body's signaling something's wrong, it means there's something wrong. Like, prep shouldn't be this hard, and things shouldn't be that hard, if that makes sense. So, like, understanding those signals and understanding my body a little bit better and being more in tune with myself. I also think like my mental resilience is really, really strong. I think my relationship too, I underestimated how healthy my relationship actually is with my body and with my relationship with food. Like, I thought I was going to struggle more than what I did, but I think with what had happened, I had done really well in hindsight. Like, looking back at, I could have probably taken that and been like, I'm never touching the bodybuilding industry again. Like, this is all the bodybuilding fault. Like, this is my coach's fault, which it was not at all. Like, I could have made excuses for why that was happening to me and been really upset that that was happening to me and maybe not someone else. But that's just life. And I feel like it's made me even stronger going into this prep and way more resilient going into this prep. And it's just made this prep a lot easier as well. Like, not to say that obviously I wouldn't have wanted that to happen again, but I think because it's happened, I have now like come into this prep so much stronger, and just knowing, like, with so much hindsight and strength behind me, to feel like this is so much easier amongst the hard, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and did that experience change the way that you view how you're prepping post-show care and reverse dieting as well?
Yeah, of course. I think it'd be silly not to look back at that and take some lessons from it leading into the show. Bloods is a massive thing. Like, as soon as I got cleared to gym again, because I wasn't allowed to gym for 8 weeks post surgery, I invested in a coach that I made sure to tell him, like, look, I will not go into another bodybuilding show. I will not go on this journey unless my health is the main priority. And yeah, we kind of got bloods done. He's like, yep, cool. I won't actually coach you if you don't get your bloods done every 6 to 8 weeks. Like, it's not going to be a thing. Like, your health is our main concern. You will not be ready to prep. I will not give you the go ahead to prep if you are not healthy, if your blood markers don't come back. Okay. Especially because I had to change around the way I ate now as well, because I have endometriosis as well. And if you guys who are listening don't know much about endometriosis and the nutrition that comes with that, is you typically are on high fats just to help out with your hormones. But because I now don't have a gallbladder, I now have to be on low fat. So it's finding that fine line where I'm, helping out my hormone health, as well as making sure that my pancreas and my liver and my digestional functions aren't overloaded with too much fat. So changing how I ate as well was a little bit difficult leading into this show, but I think it's helped out heaps. And doing my bloods, making sure I'm taking my consistent vitamins. Like, I'm on a whole range of vitamins that I never took before. I was just like, oh yeah, vitamin C, vitamin D, whatever, fish oil, the usuals that everyone takes, but actually leaning into and realizing like you actually do need these things. You aren't like everyone else. You are dealt with this card. Like, how are you going to deal with it leading into this show? And I think just being consistent with it, like being actually consistent with it, and not just like knowing that you need to be looking after your health, but actually doing it is really important. Like, I know a lot of people out there, and like I've had clients that will know they need to do something, or know something's going to be good for them, but they just like they'll be fine. But like actually doing that for yourself, so you don't get to that point where it's bad. Like, it's sad to think, like, for me, something bad had to happen for me to invest in that health.
Yeah, I think, but through you sharing your struggles and your story as well, should hopefully help other people out there to actually invest the time and the money into their health too. So do you have any advice for someone who potentially feels like something small might be going on, or they should be doing something, but they're just ignoring it?
Yeah, definitely just get your bloods done. Like, that's going to tell you everything you need to know about yourself and where you're at with your health and fitness journey, especially if you're on prep. Like, I think it's so important, and especially post show as well, because one shoe doesn't fit all. Like, everyone's so different with the health and fitness journey that they go on. So I just think it's really important to know what your health markers are, as well as like listen to your body. Like, yes, for me, an example, like, I'm not a candidate to I shouldn't have had gallstones. I'm not a smoker. I don't drink. I'm really healthy, but yet it still happened to me. So if you're trying to push for that, or you think it might be that, definitely look into it. Don't just throw it away because you aren't the like right person to be under that sort of idea of having that. I also think too, like, prep is hard, but it's not so hard that you should be struggling every day, or like feeling like you're like on death's door every day. So know that prep's hard, but not every day should be hard. So if every day feels hard, then maybe something's wrong. And please, 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 like, go and check like just your bloods. Get your bloods done, talk to people about their experience as well, and take this podcast and just know that maybe something is wrong if it feels more hard than what it should be.
Yeah, I love that advice. I think that's really, really important. So what are
Yeah.
your focuses and goals this time around with this prep and this show?
Yeah, I'm so excited for the show. I'm so ecstatic that they've brought this back to New Zealand. It's almost like a full circle moment, because I was gunning for the New Zealand show when I first decided to compete in 2019, which obviously the New Zealand Federation went away, like it wasn't a thing anymore. And they've just brought it back for their first show in many years. And I'm so excited that I can go up onto that stage with a bit of experience, and that my friends and family can come watch. Like, it means the world to me. And I'm actually wearing a bikini color that I initially was going to wear in that first show in 2019. So I'm kind of doing like a full circle moment, which is really exciting. But my focus for this show is literally, I have two focuses. One, obviously personal, being that I want to eat the package that I bought into last year, knowing that I'm now wellness, because obviously with those placings in the Sydney show, amongst one of the most stacked wellness lineups, or that many competitors in that wellness lineup that I've actually seen, I really want to beat the package that I bought last year and hopefully place in a higher placing. Even if it's one higher placing than I did last year, I will be so, so happy. And I think it'd be silly of me not to try, be honest about that, and gun for that, and just play myself down and be like, oh no, like, it's fine, like, we'll see. Like, no, there are expectations of myself now that I've done it before. It's not my debut show. Like, I need to push for that. And then my other goal or focus for the show is just to hopefully bring more awareness and just shine the light on FMG community in New Zealand, because it's such a missed market here. Like, there's actually and I like what Angel said in your last podcast episode with her, actually, about how FMG is like the Victoria's Secret of the bodybuilding industry. And I think there's so many women that would fit this this federation in New Zealand that are just too scared to do it because the Australians are, our stack lineup is going to be made up of some Australians, but us New Zealanders can do it too. Like we can do it too and be competitive. And I think that's like an important thing for me personally. And I'm putting that pressure and that idea on myself. Like no one else is putting that on me, but I think it's important. I feel a bit of a responsibility, obviously having done it before and having a placing to shine the light for New Zealand is moving into this show and future New Zealand shows.
Yes, I love that. I feel like it'll be such an incredible feeling for you to step on stage in New Zealand, that full circle moment, like you mentioned, having friends and family there. And then also, I feel like it is going to be eventually massive in New Zealand. It's just like
I think
getting
so
that
too.
exposure and, like you said, shining the light on it. So I love that you have that mission as well, because I think there's so many people that could be brought together by that community who might feel a little bit isolated or kind of alone in their fitness journey. And once you find that community, like, whether it's through FMG or something else, it really is so, so incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree.
So you're not just an athlete that's prepping for a show, you're also a coach and a CEO. How do you balance your personal prep with the responsibility of supporting all of these other women through their transformations as well?
Yeah, so I think just leading the way, like I think practicing what you preach is a massive thing in being a coach. And I think that's why I do what I do as well. It's why I actually go into bodybuilding to show these clients like you can do it. Like I live a normal life like all of them. I'm a massive foodie like all of them. I don't like to heavily restrict, but knowing that you can in periods of your life do this and make it work, especially being, really, really busy and having all these other things that you've got going on and still being able to put your health and fitness first and like reaching new levels to yourself is really important. But I think compared to last year, this year, I haven't overloaded myself with a lot of work. I've made sure that like my numbers are really capped. I'm really focusing on like client quality as well, like quality coaching and making sure that each and every day when I give my morning motivational message to my clients, that it really speaks to what I'm going through and being able to relate. Like, yeah, I understand what low calories feel like. I understand what doing cardio feels like when you're really busy. I understand how freezing it is outside right now, but you've still got to go tick off those boxes sort of thing. And I think them seeing that really, because they've obviously come to me as clients because they either admire what I do or like how I live my life. And I think actually showing them like the process of it and them kind of coming along with me for the journey is really important as they're going through their own journey and, saying like, okay, well, if my coach is doing it, then maybe I should be, or maybe I can do it. Or yeah, it's just really important just kind of practicing what I preach during this time.
And do you ever feel pressure to have it all together as a coach, even when you're personally going through, adversities?
Yeah, I think last year again when I got sick and I was in hospital for those 13 days trying to run a full on business during that time was pretty hectic, and I think just reminding myself that I cannot fill up anyone else's cup if mine's not full. So just bring it back to like, what's my threshold? What can I give to my clients that I'm giving them enough, but I'm also keeping enough for myself, that I'm showing up for not only myself, but showing up for them. Because if I show up for myself, it's going to show them that they also need to as well. So yeah, just making sure that I've got my support systems, I've got my routines in place. Like I'm very routinely, and I think it's really important that you keep to a routine and that your schedule is like stacked every single day, leading you toward your goal and not going for, okay, how much can I get done? It's like, okay, what can I get done with quality? And then what can I get done tomorrow? Like we all have the same 24 hours in a day, and just kind of working like that. But yeah, I have definitely put pressure on myself before, but I think the pressure for me is good. Like I work better under pressure actually, and I think I do better for my clients when I'm under pressure as well. Like if I'm speaking honestly, I think I probably coach better when I'm actually in a prep and bodybuilding because I'm so laser focused on this goal. And I'm also going through the motions of what they're probably going through, and being able to give them like, okay, I'm feeling this way. Here's how I'm going to navigate today. Here are my tips for navigating through that, or here's my motivation of why you can do it too. So I think I've become a better coach in prep, but yeah, managing those pressures is just comes down to making sure that I'm still doing things that fill up my cup in each and every week.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you say that, you feel like you're actually coaching better in prep, because I feel like when you get that momentum in a prep, that like everything is done to a T, you're
Yes.
scheduling everything so perfectly because you've got actually like less time, you're
Yeah.
so much more productive with the time that you have. And like
Agree.
somehow you create all this time for cardio and steps and all of that.
Yeah.
And then you're doing other stuff while you're doing, cardio and steps. So
Yeah.
it's like somehow you create all this other time. So I think that's an important message for people, not to just like give up on their career or their business or like other areas of life just because they're prepping, or like leaving things until after prep. Like, use that momentum that you've got from a prep. It's such a unique and like cool
It is.
period of time that you just have so much momentum to get stuff done.
Yeah, you're like almost overcompensating for the time you're taking out to do prep. You're like, okay, well, I need to like really get onto my clients to like make sure I'm like showing up for them just as much as you're showing up for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So post show blues, body dysmorphia, weight rebound, all of these are such real parts of the journey that I think people are talking about a little bit more now, which is really good. How do you
Mm.
navigate any of those shifts kind of mentally and emotionally, especially with an audience online?
Yeah, look, I think like coming back to yourself and realizing everyone goes through it and really humanizing it as well. Like we're all human at the end of the day. Like as much as I'm a coach, like I still struggle with body dysmorphia, majorly muscle dysmorphia as well, and just going through like periods of your life, like, yep, going into build phase is uncomfortable, and just knowing that we're all human, we all feel it, and like just talk to your support systems. I think one of the biggest things or beneficial things for most people is genuinely get a coach. Like your coach has been through it. They also know that have the tools to like help you navigate through it, and they're unbiased as well. Like they're going to tell you it straight of, okay, yep, you're being silly, or like, yep, okay, cool, we could probably maybe go through this phase to make you feel a little bit better. But I think acknowledging the feeling and sitting with it for a bit and being like, okay, cool, I feel this way. I know that I'm not the only person that feels this way. What can I do to make myself feel better? Or like knowing that this isn't forever, this is an uncomfortable stage you're sitting in, but every phase serves a purpose. And I think for me personally, I have a really good relationship with this because I have seen myself at the leanest I've ever been. I've seen myself, you know, post surgery having been cut up and it swollen and inflamed. I've seen myself in a build phase. Like I've been through all those uncomfortable phases and come out the other side better every single time. Like I know for people listening now who may not be at that stage yet, you will get so past it. Like our fate, like women are incredible. We will go through so many phases and our bodies will go through so many phases, and being able to enjoy each phase. And I think that is so important to like love yourself in each phase, and knowing that, yeah, post show is really hard and gaining weight's really hard and weight fluctuations are really hard, but you will like get through it. You will get through it. Every phase serves a purpose, like I said. Yeah, I just think it's important to love yourself. Like just know that, like I said at the beginning, humanize it. Like everyone goes through it. Like talk about it to someone. You're not going to be the only one, and you're probably going to be helping someone else by talking about it. And you're also getting yourself through it by speaking on it, not just sitting with it and feeling like real in the dumps and down in the dumps and like not doing anything about it.
Yes, I think it's taking responsibility. And honestly, like what you
Yeah.
said gave me goosebumps. I think I can resonate with that so much. And it's such an important message again for anyone listening to this, to just like talk about what you're going through. And if you are comfortable sharing it online or like talking on your stories or whatever it is, like so many people will resonate with you. You will not understand the impact that you're having on people and how many other people have been through something similar. And when you build that community, it's so incredible, like having that support, right?
Yeah, and I think with like the social media right now, we are faced with a lot of like toxic positive stuff as well, and I think it's really important. And I hope that I'm doing this as well, is just shining a light on all of the phases. Like I think it's really important, and also reminding yourself that I can't remember how the quote goes, but it's something like you need to appreciate where you are before raising the bar and constantly reaching for new goals, because then you'll never appreciate where you are. And it's that old thing, like I have clients and I say this all the time, that even say like when you're in your early 20s and then you're sitting in that phase and you think you may be really really heavy or you may not like how you look, but then in 5 years time you look back and then you think, how silly was I looked amazing. But you can't enjoy that until hindsight. So trying to remember, like every time you're probably going to look back and think, oh my gosh, I was so silly, I actually looked amazing there, like I should have been, I took away from myself by not being comfortable in my own skin. And I think everyone's guilty of that. Like you'll look back at photos and think, oh my gosh, I remember not enjoying that day because I thought I looked this X way, but in hindsight you actually looked amazing. And I think it's just getting in your head, and it is all a mindset thing. Everybody struggles with it. Your like coaches struggle with it, I struggle with it, even in prep, even at my leanest self I struggled with it. Like you just need to remember that it's all a mindset thing, and it's just kind of getting over that bridge. And as long as you're doing the things that make you feel good and are progressing you to that next phase, I think you should just be happy with where you're going. Because if you're progressing with these little tasks, whether you are sticking to your nutrition, whether your clothes fit a little bit better, whether you are getting more sleep at night, you're still going to be better the next day. I
Yeah, I
don't
think
know
that
if that makes sense. My brain's not explaining this very well.
yeah, no, that makes so much sense. And I think that's the main thing. Like, if you're taking action towards being, your better self or your best self, I
Yeah.
think that's when you actually feel your best as well. Like, when you're taking those little actions consistently to feel your best and make progress and, consistently compound upon that progress, that's when you really do feel your best. And like you said, it's just appreciating that moment because you'll look back and be like, oh my gosh,
Mm.
I looked amazing. What's been the hardest lesson that you've learned trying to grow your business and your personal brand while still being true to yourself?
Yeah, I think it's that being authentic in this industry at the moment will sadly probably get you like to that point where you're trying to get to slower. But I think morally at the end of the day, you'll feel much better for it than trying to like cookie cutter everyone or like fearmonger or bully your way into success. Like, I think personally, I feel like I've stayed really true to being really fair and really authentic and just trying to build my community through real connections. I think that sometimes for me, I'm like, oh, I could probably, you see marketing, you see other people, and you're like, oh, I could probably do this X, Y, Z, and go shortcuts this way, and be a little bit further on. But will that feel good at the end of the day when I'm talking to my clients? Will that make me feel good inside? Will that be true to my morals and my values in my business? Like, no, it probably won't. But just being okay with it, that's probably the hardest lesson I've learned is like, okay, well, as much as I wish I was a little bit further on, or I could be doing shortcuts, or there's things I could be doing, but I don't. At the end of the day, I feel like now sitting looking back at my business, now that it is doing really well, is like, okay, well, I'm so glad I didn't do that and didn't go down that route, because now I have this really rock solid community. I love everyone in my community. I think everyone is really authentic. They all support each other. It's beautiful and growing without me necessarily having to do much in it anymore. Knowing that I did that and did right by people getting there is really important, I think. And I think that lesson was hard going through it. Like, there would be moments where I'd be like, oh, for example, like, oh, maybe I should just do an ingredient list for meal plans, and people just go, because it's going to save me a lot of time. But then knowing that, well, no, that's not tailored to the person. Like, no, that's not what they're paying for, or no, that's not what's going to get this client to that next stage. And that doesn't sit well with me. And now knowing, like, being quicker at it now, and knowing that I've got this community that stays with me and they're loyal to this community, I think is beautiful now looking back at it. And I think that's probably a lesson that I've learned. And also knowing that not everyone is for you, and that is okay. And not everyone will support you, and that's okay. And going into a new business, coming off working with other people and going like as a sole contractor for yourself and working for yourself, is knowing that you can't be everything to everyone. So sometimes spreading yourself too thin, you're just going to end up being the loser at the end of the day. Like, you need to make sure that you're prioritizing yourself and where you're wanting to get to moving forward as well.
Yes, absolutely. Are there any like techniques or tactics that you use to protect your own time and things that are important to you outside of your business?
Yeah, so I think boundaries. Boundaries is a huge thing. It's something I've had to work a lot, like really hard to like set up really stable boundaries with my clients, with my friends and family, with myself as well. Like, for example, like, I used to work 7 days a week, and I would give as much time to everyone, and I would be, like coaching 24/7. Like, you can contact me 24/7, but not everyone should be like contactable that much, because then you're constantly worrying about other people's lives and worrying about other people's problems and fixing everyone else's lives without worrying about yourself. And then you just burn out. Like, you just burn out too quick. And I think setting up those boundaries for myself actually makes me a better coach, actually makes me a better partner, actually makes me a better friend, because I have this time set up, whether I work Monday to Friday and I take the weekends off like a normal job, and I actually allow myself to have that time to refill my cup. Like I said earlier, like, I just cannot give as much without taking a little bit of that time to, replenish myself, so that I can give everyone as much as of myself that I can, to then propel them forward as well. So boundaries is huge. Huge, huge, huge.
Yes. Yes, so so important.
Mm.
So, moving on to like your goals for the next season, what
Yeah.
is your vision for this competitive season and beyond that as well?
Yeah, so again, like I said, no, I'm wellness. My judge's feedback was I'm wellness, so not bikini athletic. And hoping that I place better than I did last year. So I placed third last year. So I am being completely honest. Like I do want to go pro someday. I don't know whether this next show. There's all I can control is how good I show up for myself each and every day. What all the tasks I can hit leading into the New Zealand show. But as long as I beat the package that I did last year, and hopefully that will be achieved by this next New Zealand show in 12 to 13 weeks. But if not, then hopefully going for another show after that fact. But I do really want to try keep it to New Zealand because, like I said, New Zealand is the market I want to be in. I want to be called a New Zealand pro in the future. I want to be able to go, like my vision for myself, and then bringing back to that full circle moment of that 2019-year-old self, wanting to be able to go to the New Zealand shows, New Zealand pros, like be able to go to the posing like workshops as a pro, as a New Zealand pro is really, really, really important for me. So yeah, however long I can and how much work I need to put into that, I'll do. So that's kind of the vision moving forward into this next show, as well as just going to as healthy as possible is really important for me as well.
Yes, so exciting. And what advice would you give to a competitor who has had setback after setback and is on the edge of giving up?
If you can't go a week without thinking about it, you need to do it. Like you will not be able to feel safe. Like it's in your mind for a reason. You're constantly bugged with the idea of it because you clearly like deep down a part of you wants to do it. Like just do it. Like do it for yourself. Like you'll be so glad that you did it. Whether the outcome is what you expected or not, it doesn't matter because the journey, you grow so much from it. Whether you gain a placing in the show or not, it doesn't matter. Like you will gain so much from the journey itself, probably more than if you place or not, that you can bring into your own life, whether that be your relationships with other people, whether how you train, or that next step in your fitness and health journey is really important. Yeah, if you can't stop thinking about it, like do it. Like why not? There's no time like the present. There will always be adversities, always, through everything. No prep is the same. Life still carries on. So just making sure that you just go into it with a mindset of being 100% in and just keep gunning for it. Like the time's gonna pass either way. You might as well utilize it for something, else. You're just constantly pushing it out, and the more you resist it, the longer the journey is gonna be for you.
Yes, I love that advice so much. Tiana, thank you so much for your openness, your honesty, and honestly, the example that you set in this sport, especially within the New Zealand community as well. For anyone who wants to follow along your journey and the rest of your prep, where's the best place to connect?
Yeah, so connect with me on Instagram is probably the best one. I'm just under Coach Teiyana. But yeah, that's probably where I mean, thanks so much for having me. Sorry if you've been listening and I've had like the worst prep brain ever. I hope that you guys understand what I'm saying. I'm like a bit of gibberish, but I'm sure competitors can understand.
Yes, absolutely. I think you'll listen back and be surprised how good you actually sound. But thank you so much for your time coming on. And thank you so much to our listeners as well. If you like this show, please don't forget to follow on whatever you're listening to this on. It really does help us to grow and get more incredible guests on. Also, share this to your stories. Let us know what you learned or what you're doing while you're listening to it. Tag Tiana and myself. We absolutely love to see it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.